Welcome to Live from the Heart podcast. My name is Anne-Claire Meret. I help beautiful beings feeling empowered to create their lives. I coach, teach, create programs, write books, among other things, and I love it. It took me years of healing and coaching, but I finally found the way back to my heart. Today I thrive and help people thrive too. Everything is happening faster and faster. I feel we are being supported in so many ways. I know we can thrive on a collective level. If you want to create from your heart, you're in the right place. Hello, I'm happy to welcome you for a new episode with a special guest, Nic Warner. Welcome, Nic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm super happy that you accepted it because you've had a great influence in my life. I had a chance to meet you in person in Berlin. And then I started to follow you on social media. And I really love what you're sharing with the world. And recently, my partner and I, we did one of your courses. And it was about sexuality for men. And maybe later on, we'll talk more about this topic. And I would like to acknowledge how much of beautiful work you're doing in the world for men, but not only for men, also for us women. Because when men understand themselves better, they are so much better partners. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you please introduce yourself with your own words?
I can. My name is Nic. I grew up in Australia. I studied architecture, worked in architecture for a number of years. I was married to a very beautiful woman, and my life was a mess. And I kind of waited till I hit rock bottom, like many of us do, before things started to change. And I went on a journey of about 3.5 years of traveling across the world, really diving into different modalities of healing that called me and that I believed I needed. So, deep into meditation and breath work and yoga and dark rooms and plant medicine and sexuality and sacred intimacy and tantra. And at some point, I got into men's work, and I realized that I was not the only man that was suffering and struggling and kind of carrying this burden that society had placed on us to be a certain way and to do certain things. And the past 6 years has just kind of been a journey of discovering my truth and kind of aligning deeper and deeper into that, and then shining light for men to do the same.
It's amazing and it's beautiful. And it's beautifully done also, because I feel that what you're sharing is so much, we can see that you've been through some depth, but you make it very articulate, for example, on Instagram, and you make it easy to understand what it means to do the work.
Yeah, it's there is so much noise and fluff. And this is one of the things when I first got into kind of the sacred intimacy or the sexuality side of it. There is so much fluff and so much ambiguity in what is said. And it's really much simpler than it sounds or than it seems. And a lot of men don't get into this stuff because it just seems so complicated. And to just break it down to its simplest form and its most digestible form is a really beneficial thing for so many people, because they see this really perhaps desirable outcome or this thing that they want to undertake, and then it's so overwhelming because of the fluff that surrounds it. And if you can just extrapolate what is necessary and what is the essence of whatever it is that you're teaching or speaking of, it's much easier to be digested from whoever needs it.
Yeah, especially for men, I can imagine, because Usually, I mean, I'm in the healing industry too, and I can see that it's dragging so many women because they're interested in getting better and understanding and growing from it. And it's not that men are not interested, but it seems that it takes more to them to start doing it. And yeah.
Yeah. As it happened for me, it happens for a lot of men, and we don't want to admit that we have a problem. We want to believe, and we want other people to believe that we have our shit sorted out and that we have it worked out and we're capable because we're men and that's what we need to do. So it really doesn't, a lot of men don't begin until they hit rock bottom, until they get to the point of absolute, if something doesn't change, I'm going to die, or if something doesn't change, everything is going to fall apart. And it's it's a sad reality of life for so many people that, as men, there is this thing that we have to have it sorted out because we're men and we have to be strong and we have to man up and all of these things. So we don't seek help when we need it. And that becomes a problem in many areas.
Yeah, including sexuality.
Including sexuality.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about it, not only it, because you're doing a lot of different approaches, and you address a lot of different topics, which are very complementary. And but there is a lot of sexuality in your work. Can you explain masculinity, sexuality? Why did you choose to work with this with men?
I was married I think we were together for about 9 years, and my sexual kind of experience began with, it was kind of traumatic, where I didn't want to have sex with this woman for the first time. That I was at a party, we were drunk. She wanted to, I didn't. I kind of just went ahead with it. I wasn't into it, and I couldn't get it up. And I ended up telling one of my best friends, who then went and told kind of everybody else at school. And it planted this seed of like this just psychological devastation, which really fucked up my intimacy with women from that point forward. Because once the seed of can I get it up, or maybe I can't get it up, is planted, the roots can go quite deep, and it can affect everything about a man, especially within bed. But it starts to fuck with his confidence and with his self-worth and all of these things. So this happened in the very beginning. And then I was learning about sex through porn. So then I go into this marriage and I have a very dysfunctional relationship with sex. And for the majority of my marriage, I was addicted to porn, and I had problems getting it up, and I had problems with premature ejaculation. And at some point, my wife had an affair. And it was, I mean, I look back, it took me probably 2 years or a year and a half, but I look back on it and it was the greatest gift that I've received, because it was kind of like the rock bottom of like, all right, now you either need to start healing and start looking at yourself, or you're going to continue on down the path that you were headed, and it's not going to end well. So when I went traveling, one of the main things I wanted to get into was to learn about sexuality and to learn why I had these problems. And I was about to sit in a 40-day silent retreat, and the teacher said, I want you to go for 7 weeks without ejaculating. And I want you to see what happens to your creativity and to your energy and to your life when you do that. And at the time, I'd barely go 7 hours without ejaculating. I'd wake up, I'd look at porn, I'd jerk off, maybe during the day, and then definitely before I'd go to bed. So this was something I'd never even considered or heard of. And I got about 5 weeks in, maybe 6 weeks in, and I had a wet dream. and I was devastated because it meant that I had to start again. But it also showed me that there was something that I was missing. There was an aspect to the practice that I hadn't yet understood. And then I met a doctor on my travels, and he was saying how I should go out and spread my seed because he's met so many guys with prostate issues that are celibate. And I was kind of curious as to why he would say something that was so polar opposite to the other guy. And I spent some time trying to find the slither of truth that existed in between, like a Venn diagram, because they were both right, but they were just also, there was some nuance to what they were saying that was incorrect. So you can go
So you started
for as long as you want without ejaculating. So I started researching. I started to meet teachers. I started to, I ended up at the Tao Garden, as we spoke of earlier, at some point. But I was fortunate enough I was in a peyote ceremony in Mexico, and there was this woman there that I was just magnetized to. And after the ceremony, she's like, I hate plant medicine. It's poison. Pleasure is my medicine. And I was about to go to Peru, and I was just going, well, we disagree on that, but whatever. And she said that she wanted to run a retreat where we'd go into the mountains somewhere, and it'd just be dedicated to pleasure and to qigong and to breath work and to yoga and to tantric practices. And I kind of said good luck to her and see you later. And she said, well, do you want to do it with me? And it was kind of this really divine blessing. And I ended up in the mountains of Mexico for 3 weeks with this incredible tantra teacher who just really, she kind of taught me these practices without the fluff. So I'd been reading books, but I didn't really understand some of the esoteric side of it. And we just spent this time, I spent the time learning from her. And it completely changed my relationship to intimacy and to sex. And once that was, suddenly I can have full-bodied orgasms, and it was this great thing. And then I went back home, and I was like, that aspect of myself had been healed. Yet what I realized was that physical intimacy is not the only piece of intimacy that there is. And I really sucked at emotional intimacy, and I didn't understand polarity, and I was really shit in relationship. So I spent probably, that was 3 or 4 years ago now, and I came back and really dug into polarity work and to intimacy. And I've been working with John Wineland for the last couple of years, and it's just the most beautiful work. And it really makes everything else, it makes a complete practice. So you just can't have one, or you can't have one without the other.
Well, it's such a beautiful journey. It's just wonderful and so obvious, like this is what you had to do, and you just did it, and you took responsibility for it. And that's the biggest piece, I feel. That's okay, I'll own it. I'll walk the path, and I'll see why this is happening to me.
Mm. Yeah, it's one of the most difficult yet most liberating truths of being a man. And I say man because I speak for myself, but we're 100% responsible for the lives that we create. And so many men play the victim, and they just sit back, oh, poor me, and they wait for their mum to come and pick them up and dust them off and tell them it's going to be okay. And the reality is that we have the opportunity and the power to create the life of our dreams. And we also have the opportunity and the power to really create a dysfunctional, fucked up existence. And we get to choose. And ownership and self-responsibility is absolutely paramount to living a beautiful life.
You talked about polarities. Can you please talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'll use the term alpha and omega just because we don't really have time to go deeper into it. Some people may use the term, and I often use the term masculine and feminine. But we all have these two energies within us. And one is more of a linear, structured, leading, rational type of energy, a penetrative energy. And one is more of a receptive, more intuitive, more emotional, more creative energy. And we each have, like every person on the planet, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, each person has these two energies within them. And in relationship or in sexual attraction, there needs to be basically a polar opposite for there to be a sexual attraction. So if you're a very alpha man, you're going to be attracted, and she's going to be attracted to a very omega woman. If you're kind of a man that is, a little bit more feminine, then you're going to be attracted to a woman that has a little bit more alpha in her. And regardless of sexual orientation, if there isn't that disparity, if there isn't that arc of polarity, then there is going to be no sexual desire. So what happens in relationship, often in the beginning, there is this polarity. Yet as time goes on, if we don't work on it or if we don't understand it, the polarity begins to diminish. And this can happen in relationships where you become really good friends, but the sexual or the physical intimacy starts to dissolve. This can be because perhaps the woman, either from wounding or from whatever, becomes more alpha or more masculine, and the man becomes more feminine, and it's not the core essence of who they are. So for the woman, she becomes tired and she becomes exhausted and worn out, but she doesn't trust the man to be able to lead and to be able to hold her. So she naturally just steps up, and he just becomes lazy and kind of allows it to be. So suddenly, the emotional intimacy, or at least the physical intimacy, will dissolve in that relationship. So it's not the be all and end all, but it is an incredibly powerful tool to understand and to be able to use, to dance between. One moment you can be really in your feminine energy, and then the moment calls that you have to step up into your masculine, and vice versa. So it's not like you're stuck at either one, and it's not like you have to have more than one than the other. It's a beautiful spectrum, and it's just understanding how it works is kind of the great benefit of it.
Yeah, and I can see how it is important to be able to shine light on it, because otherwise you can change partner, but then you will again play the same game because you didn't understand why it happened in the first place.
Exactly. It's one of the common things is, there is a plethora of evidence and of reasoning why a woman shouldn't trust men. She grew up, and perhaps it was a father or her first boyfriend or her brother or whatever, but she grows up and she can't trust men. So her masculine side becomes stronger because she only trusts her own masculinity more than she trusts it externally. And then she's going to be naturally more attracted to a guy with a more feminine essence. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, a lot of the time, that's because she can then control him. So she feels safer when she's in her masculine. So therefore, she's attracted to a guy who is less in his masculine. So then there's this wounding, and he's in his feminine because father issues, mother issues. There's a plethora of reasons. But until they both work on the wounding, it's going to stay the same. And then they'll, the intimacy will dissolve. They'll go into a new relationship. It'll start off great and it'll be the same shit because they didn't work on the shadows of why they are the way they are. So really understanding that allows you to then step into your power and really own where you're at and who you are and the essence of who you are. And it's a really beautiful modality to kind of work within relationship.
How would you recommend someone to work on that topic? Would you recommend to read books, to find a coach which is able to guide you? How did you do it?
The first book I ever read on the topic was, and the book that I recommend for every man and even women, I've given it to a lot of women, and it's kind of blown their mind at how well this guy has understood the feminine, and that is The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. He has another one which is more based on the feminine, which is called Dear Lover. And then I believe the other one that is very much polarity based is Intimate Communion. He has a number of books, and he's one of the guys that brought it more mainstream. My teacher, John Wineland, has a website like a library full of practices that you can sign up to and get stuck deeper into. Or you can get a coach. But the first thing you'd really want to look at, because it's kind of where it starts, is the wounding that you have from your mother and father. And regardless of how beautiful the relationship was or is, we all have parental wounding. And for example, my wounding was different to my brother's, and we're very different, yet we had the same parents. So it's just, it's a very personal journey, and one that starts with shadow work, basically. But to understand polarity, the books that I'd recommend definitely come from David Deida. The other one, actually, there's a book by Justin Patrick Pierce and his partner, Londin Angel Winters. And the book is called The Awakened Woman's Guide to Everlasting Love. And it's a really beautiful example of a couple that has been in relationship for many, many years. And you can feel the deep love. They're both teachers of sacred intimacy. And it's another thing I'd highly recommend.
Thank you. I will put all the references for people to go take a look. Yeah. You talked about practices. This is not only about understanding why you are who you are. It is also changing your way of being on a daily basis. And to do that, you need to change how you behave. And can you maybe go through a few practices that have been very beneficial to you?
Yeah. As far as masculinity, because this is it's the lens that I kind of look at everything through as far as my own journey. Presence for me is one of the key pieces and our greatest gifts that we can offer the world, whether that's our partner, whether it's our clients, our boss, our friends, a stranger on the street. Our capacity for presence and to embody presence is a gift. And you can feel in communication with people that most people don't know how to be present. They're often caught up in their own thoughts. They're thinking what to say next. Their kind of eyes are darting around the room, following their thoughts. And then you can imagine when it comes to intimacy, how disruptive it is and how off-putting it is when the person isn't present. So, I mean, for me, and kind of the core non-negotiable practice is meditation, and then breath work as well. So whether that's some form of Kundalini, or kind of a Wim Hof style, or some type of more yin, more gentle Taoist practice, or a Qigong practice of just moving the energy. They're two non-negotiable. So meditation and breathwork are two non-negotiable practices that I have daily. And then the other thing that I really love going to the gym. It's there's something about strength, physical strength, which is a lot of guys just kind of let go of. And there's a really beautiful, a lot of people don't like Jordan Peterson. And the first time I heard him, I actually didn't resonate with him either. But the more I listened, the more I realized actually I don't agree with everything he says, yet he is a master, or he is a master of the English language, and his ability to formulate cohesive and really profound statements is really quite magical. And he mentions something about there's this, it's how does he say it? There's something about make love not war, or there's just this thing where guys tend to shy away from fighting. And for the most of my life, I've been very much that way. Like, I'll walk away from a fight at every opportunity. But he said something that struck me, and it was, just because you can't fight or you don't have the strength to fight, it doesn't make you virtuous. Being strong and deciding not to fight is virtuous. And for me, it really struck home, because a lot of people don't fight simply because, it doesn't have to be a physical fight. It can just be simply standing up for your truth, or standing up to a government that says you should do something that you actually don't want to or need to do. But so many people just cave because they don't have the strength, and then they claim it to be some kind of virtuous act, when in reality it's weakness. And when I heard that, it really struck a chord for me, that becoming the strongest physical, emotional, and mental version of myself is something that I'm really dedicated to.
Well, thank you for that. And I admire that, you live in Berlin, Germany. And by being there, I realized how much people were afraid to be seen as, a bit harsh, a bit violent, a bit stepping up for something. And yeah, that just, what you said is just super important. It's a choice. You can be strong and not choose to respond, or respond if it's right to you, but not because it's at the wrong place.
Exactly. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, is the quite pertinent saying.
Beautiful. Earlier you talked about semen retention. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And can you talk about why it's important for men to actually master it?
Most men lack the control of their ejaculation, or they lack the control of their sexual desire. And this becomes a problem in many, many ways. If men knew the power of their sexual energy, if boys were taught the power of their sexual energy from the age of 12, the world would be a very different place. Instead, we live in a society where porn is free, and so many men are addicted to porn and have sexual dysfunction, and they lack purpose because they lack the discipline to actually work towards something that really drives them to get out of bed in the morning. So they just become a shadow version of themselves. Semen retention is a discipline that can change all that. Our sexual energy is our creative life force. So it is literally what creates life. And you can, waste that into tissue every day or every couple of days, or you can cultivate it and you can build it. And the process of cultivating and building that energy, you then learn to direct it into something of more substance. And that could be your purpose, that could be your mission in life, it could be your partner, whatever, your family. But learning to cultivate that energy instead of just wasting it away, it teaches you the discipline to withstand instant gratification and to really aim for something that takes discipline, and it takes courage, and it takes a feeling of the ultimate outcome is going to be far better than the 8 seconds of pleasure and this dopamine hit that I'm going to get in this moment. So it's really a profound practice. And when I do it with men and we go through the practices that kind of make it a safe and healthy way of living, the change that men get within 2 to 3 weeks is actually quite profound. One of the issues is when their partners don't understand and their partners have their own kind of hookups regarding wanting or needing him to ejaculate. So then there's this kind of, I get I've even had women come to me like, what the fuck? I can't believe you got him to stop ejaculating. And then the men will come to me and they're like, how do I talk about it with my partner? Because she hates it. But what happens if you stop ejaculating and you start to cultivate this energy? A man's ejaculation and his orgasm are 2 separate bodily functions. So once you go long enough of retaining your ejaculation, you can actually begin to separate. So you can continue to have orgasms, but you just don't do it. You just don't ejaculate. So what this then allows for is, on average, it takes a woman 20 minutes before she's wet enough to be entered. And then on average, it takes another 20 minutes of penetration before she's ready for orgasm. It takes on average a man about 5.5 minutes before he ejaculates. So when he learns to sustain and to cultivate and to sublimate, they can then go on this journey together where it's full-blown, full-bodied orgasmic bliss. And because he's not ejaculating, he's not losing his energy. So he doesn't have that refractory period where he has to stop and then wait till the next morning or wait another hour. So the benefits of it far, far, far outweigh the 10-second ejaculation that he gets that may give her some sense of validation or whatever. But the pleasure that you guys can create and really explore together when he retains his seed is quite amazing.
It is. Thank you. It is, she says. And thank you for that. And also, it also very much deepens the intimacy. And this is such an important piece. And I could also connect it to something else which women themselves experience, which is, when we start to get a little bit more conscious about our bodies, us women, usually we quit the pill and we decide to be more conscious about the cycle and to, just have some kind of a mastery of when am I fertile, when I'm not fertile. And then we can explain it to the man and we can include him into this magnificent rhythm that we have. And then it deepens the intimacy. And it feels to me that this semen retention, I would call it a bit of a game. It is the masculine way of deepening the intimacy that we have when we respect our cycles.
Yeah, it's really, it brings another level of responsibility and another level of depth, and just all these things that just make us better men, rather than some boy that can't control his ejaculation and can't control his sexual energy and can't control his desire, and he becomes needy, and it's very unbecoming. And the women that I've met that have partners who have practiced semen retention have all kind of said the same thing. Like it would be difficult to go back to a man that doesn't know how to do it or doesn't do that at all.
Let's make it the new normal.
I'm trying.
How do you feel? Where are we heading collectively? Do you feel that there is more and more men interested in it?
In semen retention, or in
owning
healing?
responsibility for their masculinity more in a broader view?
I would like to say yes. Men are many, many, many years emotionally behind women, especially as a collective. And, I see men really doing their best to step into this healthy masculine. And then you look at things that are happening in Iran, and it's kind of polar opposite of, it's like the most evil, fucked up kind of side of the patriarchy still happening, and seemingly nothing is being done about it. At the same time, I think that's a very similar story all over Earth, is when the more we heal, the deeper, the darker the stuff comes up to get healed. And I think there is so much being healed as a collective that we're starting to get to the really fucked up, the really dark stuff. And that's going to be a process for a little while. And I think as a collective, yes, we are healing, and yes, there are more men that are interested in this stuff. And one of the beautiful things of it is that there are a lot of women that are just no longer taking it. It's just like, no, I'm not going to put up with a boy. There are so many men who are psychologically still stuck in boyhood, and for women to turn around and just say, no, not today. Like, I'm done with that shit. This is one of the key catalysts for men coming into this work, is that the relationship broke down and they don't understand why, and their partner's like, well, go work on yourself, and then here we are.
What would you say to someone who doesn't know where to start?
Speak to someone that has been there before. Kind of get clarity on what your issues are and where you're at, and then speak to someone who's done it. One of my biggest issues was I had no one to speak to, because I didn't know where to look, because I didn't want anybody to know, because I just had all of these things going on, and I went on this journey of just kind of walking blindly in the dark. And that's the beauty of coaches that have experience and mentors, and to just find somebody that resonates and reach out and chat to them. And they may say, yeah, we should work together, or they may say, actually, what you need to do is start meditating or go to therapy or drink ayahuasca or whatever it is. But just find somebody that you can chat to, and somebody who's done it before, and then just be open to hear different opinions.
Yeah, thank you. this took me back to your course. So we recently did one of your course, and we could only watch the replay because of the time difference. And I was just witnessing, you said earlier, like a fly on the wall, the space. And it was just being there together in the same journey brought a lot of, peace. Like, I'm not here alone. We're in this together. And if one of them fails, it's not failure. It's just we're learning together through each other's experiences. And that brings so much courage.
Yeah, it's one of the most common things in men's circles. Like, as men, we think we're doing it alone and we're the only person that has this issue. And then suddenly somebody starts talking about having the issue and you're like, oh shit, there's somebody else that's going through the same thing. And then the next person's like, yeah, I went through that last year. And then suddenly you realize that actually most men experience the same shit. And to be able to speak to other men who are in it and who have been through it and who have recovered or kind of come out the other side, and to just have that, it's just such a release of burden to know that you're not the only one. And yeah, in that course, like, I think there was 57 guys there, and you could see in the chat of guys just being fully relieved that they weren't doing this alone, and it was so much better with so many other men on board.
Yeah, what you're doing is precious. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would you like to add anything?
The greatest gift you can give to yourself and the world and your family and everybody is to heal, to start your healing journey. And so many people on this planet point the finger at everybody else and blame other people and play the victim, and there's all of this projection. And it's just, if every single person just kind of reflected on where they were at and what they needed to do to be better people, it would be a different world. It's very easy to point to the stick in the eye of somebody else and not realize that you have one in your own eye. So, yeah.
Thank you. How can we find you online, and how do you work with people? If someone wanted to reach out to you and learn from you, how can we do it?
So I offer one-to-one coaching and mentorship. I have an online men's community where we speak twice a month, and we have a Telegram group. I have a program called the Empowered Lover, which I hope to release in January.
We're looking for that forward to that one.
It will be an 8-week course that kind of explores everything in the realm of sexual energy and polarity. Because as I said, having one without the other doesn't really make so much sense. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram just at Nic Warner, and then reach out and be happy to have a chat and see where you're at.
And I will put your links so that people can easily find you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, if you ever want to come back and talk about something else, the door is open.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we can think of something.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for your presence. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it, like it, save it. You can follow me and connect with me via social media and my website, simply with my name, Anne-Claire Méret. See you soon with more content from the heart.
Ah.